Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Charmed Season 4, Episode 12, Charmed and Dangerous. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happens in the episode. So, in this episode, we have a side plot where Paige is helping a woman try to get her son back. And this provides a distraction to the main plot of the episode, which is that the Source is gearing up for his final attack. And it starts with the Seer foreseeing him losing to the Charmed Ones multiple times. This leads him to decide that he needs to take a bigger risk than anyone, even his own side, would advise, and decides that he's going to release the Hollow, which is an entity that looks like a bunch of swarming bugs that both good and evil, eons ago, decided that they were going to both work together to seal away and couldn't even find enough power to actually destroy in order to steal the Charmed One's powers in order to be able to defeat them. So he starts by sending one of the Guardians of the Hollow after the sisters, who manages to steal Piper's powers. This, of course, leads them to finding the Guardian in the Book of Shadows, which lets them know that the Hollow has been released, otherwise they wouldn't have known that. Then he sends a Darklighter who ends up shooting Leo with one of his poison arrows, while at the same time also stealing Paige's powers, which again the Source then has access to. And the Seer continues to see the future and realizes that there is no future, because if the Hollow continues down the path that it's going with the Source, it will consume all magic, all life, the entire world. There will be nothing. And no matter how much she pleads with the Source to turn away from his foolishness, he is so obsessed with defeating the Charmed Ones that he turns his back on basically everything, saying that he's fine with there being nothing provided he gets to win. This leads the Seer to then summoning Cole to basically stop the Source, and tells him how she's foreseen a bright future for them together and they'll do great things. And basically she uses the Hollow on him, allowing him the void inside of him, left by Balthazar's powers, to be filled with the Hollow. He returns back just in time as the Source, because he has access to the sisters' powers, is winning, and he's almost defeated them fully, but Cole arrives to absorb a fireball and therefore gains the power of the fireball because the Hollow absorbed it, and he distracts the Source by throwing fireballs at him while the sisters say their ancestrally powered Source vanquishing spell, which does end up vanquishing the Source. Phoebe and the Seer then state the inscription on the box, which allows them to reseal the Hollow and gives Paige and Piper their powers back. And at the end, they ask the Seer, who says she didn't do it for their future but for hers, where the Source's power went, and she cryptically says they went into the void. Then, of course, the sisters go to P3, asking or wondering if their destiny has been fulfilled, but willing to enjoy the victory for now. And Piper and Leo go off first, followed by Paige going to the bar to hit on a man, and then Cole arrives with Phoebe, and as they're hugging, we see his eyes turn into fire, showing that the void that the Seer was talking about was the void left by Balthazar's powers in Cole. So now that we've been reminded about the episode, we're now going to rank the episode, and as always, we'll be ranking on the mostly objective ranking list, followed then by the personal ranking list. Alright, so starting off, we have a single episode supporting character introduction. and this is relating to the distraction side plot, which is Carolyn Selden. Then we have the multi-episode supporting character introduction, which is introducing the Seer. We then have our multi-season supporting character development, which is the Source getting vanquished. Followed then by our multi-season main character developments. We have Leo being hit by the Dark Lighter arrow, Piper and Paige's powers getting stolen, and then Cole getting the Source's powers. We have a bit of world building with the introduction of the Hollow as this entity that is able to steal the powers and is fully neutral and takes magic regardless of whether it's good or bad, hence why good and evil were willing to combine their powers in order to seal it in the first place, and each placed a guardian, an angel and a devil, to guard it to ensure that it did not ever get unleashed again. Regrettably, they failed in that mission. And then we have the main relationship development, where Cole gives Phoebe a new engagement ring to replace Grams's ring, which they had to put down the drain because it was hexed, as we found out in the last episode. And with all of these developments, it's no surprise this is a 10 out of 10 episode. However, I did want to acknowledge one negative, and that being the weak subplot concept of this episode. So there's a couple of things that make it weaker. First, it is the fact that its purpose as a distraction is very clear from the outset. Basically, they're in a meeting, Paige is called, asked to come home because Phoebe's had a vision of, the Source hitting Cole with a fireball, which obviously she did not know he was possessed by the Hollow at the time, so thought it was going to kill him. And she's, oh, I can't because I have this thing and I've been working on this thing. Then later there's like a refusal to go home because she has this thing. And then, she has Daryl bring Carolyn over, uses magic to help Carolyn's face because Carolyn had an abusive ex who unfortunately found her again and was trying to get custody of her son back. And here's the thing. In another episode, this concept wouldn't have been that bad, except they cheapen it by making it very obvious its sole purpose is to distract Paige from the fight with the Source, to leave them less successful than they could otherwise have been had everybody been focused on it. Additionally, we never get to find out whether she gets her son back or not. Like, we get no conclusion to this side plot. So it's very difficult to care about the side plot when we don't even have the conclusion. Did she get her son back? Did she not? We don't know. They didn't tell us. That's very rude, because had we gotten attached, we would have wanted to know, and they didn't tell us. Additionally, the side plot really only has like 3 scenes that it's in. It's the initial meeting at the courthouse. Oh wait, at the station and then at the house. But all of these together make like 5 minutes, and it's like, again, did we need it there? And had it been on a backdrop other than this ultimate battle, good versus evil, the final vanquishing, or at least the first vanquishing of the source of all evil, the original source of all evil, I should say, is vanquishing. That's a very epic plot, like for the main plot. That's high stakes. It's been building up for several seasons. And that subplot just cannot compare to it, making it kind of ultimately very weak. Hence why I took 2 points, but even with those 2 points gone, it's still 10 out of 10. And that then brings us to the season 4 rankings so far. And in first place, before I start the list, as always, when more than one episode shares the same score, it is ranked in episode order. So the first place is Charmed again, followed by Hell Hath No Fury, Enter the Demon, A Night to Remember, Lost and Bound. This episode comes in 6th place, Charmed and Dangerous, followed by A Page from the Past, Size Matters, Brain Drain, Muse to My Ears, Black as Coal, and in last place, Trial by Magic. And then we come to the personal ranking. Now, as mentioned, I did not enjoy the side plot of this. I think it could have been good if it had been up against a less epic main plot and had they given us a conclusion to that plot, letting us know, like, if they want us to care about this character, then they're going to expect that we want to know the outcome of the character, which they left us in the dark about. So it's not worth caring about the character because you're never going to have a conclusion or satisfying ending to the story because they don't tell you whether she succeeded or not. Because again, they made it very clear the only purpose of this side plot was to distract Paige from the fight to make them slightly less successful than they would have otherwise been had they all been focused on it. So I did not enjoy that. However, every other aspect of the episode was really good. We started to build the tension by seeing the initial fight with how it should have gone had things gone the way they should have without the Hollow being there. I like how the seer references back to the Oracle from the start of the season because, she did end up dying. And it also shows the contrast between the seer and the Oracle. The Oracle was very much objectified. I mean, she was in a bikini and like had like a mesh skirt thing over it, like very objectified versus like the seer is very well done up, fully covered in a shawl. Like it's a high contrast just in like appearance alone, like with the wardrobe and how they present themselves, but they have similar powers. Although the seer does note that her visions are even more powerful than the oracle's were, which makes me wonder why the source was using the oracle in the early episodes instead of the seer, but we leave that where it may. We leave it where it lies, sorry. Um, Anyways, the main point is that this episode built the tension right away. We see the successful vanquish, then we see Phoebe's vision of Cole. There's a bunch of tension on trying to save Cole. Then we have the Darklighter taking Leo out, the realization that the Source is making moves specifically to weaken them. They get the most powerful powers taken away, given to the Source. Phoebe's her powers have their own strengths, but they're not offensively strong. Or strong in offense, I should say. Hers are more, to help with like the strategy and planning. And then she has levitation, which honestly, I feel like that's a bit of a useless power, even less useful than premonition, even though it is an active power. Because it basically just lets her kick high. Anyways, that's not the point I'm trying to make here. The point is they're building this tension. You're seeing how they were like you have the successful vision at the front as the reference, and then you see how they're slowly like losing and being weakened. I like the concept of the hollow. I like how they then have this battle where it looks like they're about to lose. Everything that they try ends up being foiled because of the loss of their powers, because of the source using their powers. Like they managed to trap him in crystals, but then he uses Paige's power to get out of the crystals. And if not for Cole using the hollow, they all would have died. And thank goodness that he didn't care about the end of the world, because had he cared about the end of the world, the seer might not have been willing to help them. And you had this epic confrontation. The sisters manage to, with the like last of their strength, manage to destroy the source. And Paige, I didn't use this as a character growth because it wasn't Paige's healing powers, but Paige is able to channel Leo's healing powers through her magic in order to allow Leo to heal himself. However, they aren't her healing powers, therefore I didn't count it as her character growth, but I did want to honorably mention that she does technically heal somebody for the first time, just not with her own powers, just kind of acting as a conduit for his because of their shared white lighterness. And then, most importantly, I really enjoy the end where they wonder, is our destiny fulfilled? Only to then, at the very last scene of the episode, see Cole's eyes turn dark and remember the seer's cryptic leaving when they ask what happened to the Sora's powers, and she says it went into the void, and she goes away, and then we see that Cole, in fact, was the void, and that then sets us up for the second half of the season, which I think is all very cleverly done. Which is why I decided to give it a 9 out of 10. I didn't give it a 10 because of the negatives, specifically that subplot, but because it was so important to the series plot-wise, because it was exciting, because it built the tension well, because, well, honestly, I'm not overly a fan of people having to be beaten to win. I kind of like the overpowered characters where they just win from the start. This isn't that kind of series, and so keeping that in mind, I do like how they had the battle unfold, how they kept coming up with strategies, and yet they kept being foiled until finally Cole arrives to save the day, and they managed to ultimately win, and they had to work for it. And that, again, isn't my personal preference, but does teach a lesson. So 9 out of 10. I'll stop rambling now. Hell Hath No Fury is in first place, followed by Charmed again, A Night to Remember. I put this episode in fourth, Charmed and Dangerous, followed by Lost and Bound, Size Matters, Muse to My Ears, A Page from the Past, Brain Drain, Enter the Demon, Black as Coal, and then in 12th place we have Trial by Magic. And that now brings us to the series ranking so far. And on our mostly objective ranking, Season 3 is in first place with 76.36, Season 2 second, 75%, and Season 1 in third at 73.18%. Season 4 has a score of 98 out of a possible 210 so far. On the personal ranking side, Season 3 is in first place with 76.82, Season 1 second at 71.5, Season 2 is in third at 56.82, and then Season 4 so far has a score of 74 out of 210. And with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Charmed Season 4, Episode 12, Charmed and Dangerous. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.